Trump has a big victory at the Supreme Court, and that's good news for us. Shows that he is doing what is correct according to the Supreme Court and legal theory. Let the Democrats tear their hair out because they only like the Supreme Court when they agree with them. Welcome to the Doug TenNapel channel. Let's hit the headlines. You know how this works. You give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, let us know what you think, and welcome to the Doug TenNapel channel. This is where the happy patriots are. Okay, check this out. So first I go over all of the headlines to show you what Google is pushing and what in general media is saying, and then we zero in on just one of these articles and we'll read it. Okay, this is NBC News. Supreme Court allows Trump to terminate teacher training grants. This is just today, by the way. CNN, Supreme Court allows Trump to freeze dozens of teacher training grants. So apparently this was taken up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court agreed with Trump. New York Slimes, Supreme Court asked to keep pause on Trump's birthright citizenship order. That's a totally different topic, which is fine. WISN, Supreme Court allows Trump administration to cut teacher training money for now. They put the comma in there. Supreme Court sides with administration over education department grants. And now we're going to go to the next article down, which is The Hill, to get kind of the backfill on the whole story. Okay, here we go. Divided Supreme Court sides with Trump to block teacher grants. A divided Supreme Court sided with Trump administration by allowing officials to block $65 million in teacher developer grants, frozen over concerns they were promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion practices. There you go. So they were frozen. Big deal. And the court sided with the Trump administration to allow them to remain frozen over that practice. The 5-4 emergency ruling, I'd like to know what the split was on that, who peeled away. Probably Amy Coney Barrett joining the 4. For now, it lifts a lower order that forces the education department to resume the grants in 8 Democrat-led states that are suing, just 8 states. 5 of the court's 6 conservatives sided with the administration to grant the request. The Chief Justice Roberts and the court's 3 liberal justices dissented. Now, I wonder why John Roberts would dissent. And no, guys, don't give me this conspiracy stuff if he's woke or whatever. I like finding out if there's any legal reason why he would do it first. Let's see if it shakes anything out. The decision is not a final ruling in the case, and the dispute could ultimately return to the Supreme Court. Friday's order enables the administration to keep the grants blocked until any appeals are resolved. Quote, respondents have represented in this litigation that they have the financial wherewithal to keep their programs running. So if respondents ultimately prevail, they can recover any wrongfully withheld funds through the suit in an appropriate form. So we have to back pay them if they're right. The majority said it is an undecided ruling. Now that kind of makes sense that the Supreme Court did not want to push against Trump, because if they allowed them to continue to be funded based on this DEI ban that Trump has, and then later it ended up being that they were wrong, they could never get the money back from these groups and pay back the U.S. government. So instead, they did it the other way. If they find out this is constitutional, that Trump is wrong, then the government will have to back pay these groups what they're owed. Okay, in February, the administration began canceling disbursements under 2 federal education grants aimed at developing educators and combating teacher shortages, the Teacher Quality Partnership Program and the Supporting Effective Educator Development Program. Now, we did a video on the initial call to freeze, and the court siding with Trump back then too, saying that they would allow them to stick. Okay, so then this is not quite a full appeal. Officials have cast the freezes as part of the administration's broader crackdown on DEI, and it also comes as Trump and Education Secretary Linda McMahon look to effectively gut the department. U.S. District Judge Maayan June, an appointee of former President Obama, who served in Boston, issued a March 10th temporary restraining order. That was the TRO that we talked about in that last video, mandating the administration on immediately resume the grant programs in the 8 states. So then that's what pushed it up to the Supreme Court, and we predicted that this would have to go to the Supreme Court. The Trump administration Supreme Court emergency appeal comes after a 3-judge panel in the 4th District Court of Appeals declined to lift June's ruling. So they did a slight pushback, and now the Supreme Court is pushing back with Trump. The Chief Justice did not explain his dissent, and that's what I'm interested in, his reasons. But the court's 3 liberals chastised the majority. Notice it didn't say the 4th, including Amy Coney Barrett, who sided with them in the vote, but did not give a verbal pushback on the conservatives for getting involved in the early stages of a case. Quote, the risk of error increases when the court decides cases, as here, with bare bones briefing, no argument, and scarce time for reflection, Justice Elena Kagan wrote in a 2-paragraph solo dissent. Sometimes the court must act in that way despite the risk, and there will, of course, be good faith disagreements about when that is called for. She continued, but in my view, nothing about this case demanded our immediate intervention. This was an emergency ruling, remember. Rather than make new law on our emergency docket, we should have allowed the dispute to proceed in the ordinary way. And that might be all that Justice Roberts agrees with Kagan on. In a much lengthier dissent, whoa, this is going to be long, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, first stunning Black woman, very brave, diversity hire by Biden, who said he would only appoint her because he would only consider a Black woman, joined by Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who is the dumbest member of the Supreme Court. And it was beyond puzzling that the majority viewed the dispute as an emergency. Quote, this court's eagerness to insert itself into this early stage of ongoing litigation over the lawfulness of the department's actions, even when doing so facilitates the infliction of significant harms on the plaintiff's states, and even though the government has not bothered to press any argument that the department harm-causing conduct is lawful, is equal parts unprincipled and unfortunate. Ooh, sick burn on the 5 conservatives. It is also entirely unwarranted, Ketanji Jackson wrote in crayon. This is kind of the boring side of Supreme Courts because oftentimes they're arguing and talking about rules and procedure. And we're looking for the political ethics behind the why. Why, John Roberts? Why? And so usually it's just procedural. They're dealing with kind of, how do you handle the law? What's the proper procedure? Not I'm on Trump's side or I'm on Biden's side. When you're a Republican, that's what happens. Or when you're a conservative, I should say, a constitutional constructionist, they don't just go for politics. The leftist ladies, their political theory tends to be the Democrat Party, not even liberalism. It's a party affiliation. The administration has filed a series of such emergency applications, urging the justices to rein in lower courts that have blocked Trump's policies. Okay, now I'm going to get past those quotes, and real quick, I'm just going to zoom down to the end of the article looking for a summary. So it is just 2 lawsuits challenging the frozen teacher grants. A similar case filed by private education groups remains on a mid-level appeals court. The new ruling marks the Supreme Court's second emergency decision implicating the second Trump administration's sweeping efforts to cut aspects of federal spending. And that is the Supreme Court massive victory for Trump. This is good. It shows that they're willing to play ball for now. And we support the Supreme Court. We're thankful for them. Chief Justice Roberts, get in line, buddy. Look, there's Diesel back there. I'm Doug in exile.